Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is The Take on this Monday morning. What a wild week last week again, yes, and especially when you look across the major indices. There was a lot of people just kind of curious about what's going on, and obviously the Cappy Woods and ARK. And by the way, we're going to have part of the ARK forces come when joining us for the round table today, so that ought to be really exciting right at the close. So I look forward to that. Now, you look at the Dow, and it had a really nice run on Friday, kind of paused, kind of faded a little bit, still finished up about 120 points. NASDAQ, somewhat of a similar story, had a nice start to the day. It was up over 13,600. We're getting closer and closer as it's kind of edging towards what those highs were, which was something over 14,000. But then it sort of faded a little bit in the latter part of the day, actually finished down about 60 points. Now, crude continues to make some volatile moves as well. We talk about the volatility of Bitcoin all the time. How about crude? Crude running and sprinting all the way up to 67, pulling back to get towards 61, and actually finished somewhere near 64 on Friday. Really pretty nice performance, a nice about a 3% move to the upside. So that was pretty impressive. I mentioned Bitcoin and the volatility. You just can't say enough about what we've been seeing in there. And it's daily, it's for the week, it's for the month, whatever you want to look time frame wise, you're going to see some major volatility there. 2 weeks ago, Bitcoin was 59,000. And the next thing you know, blink, it's 31,000. Actually finished somewhere, was trading anywhere between, call it 38,000, 42,000. These moves are really, really intense. And the volatility there has been something really to watch, and it's been incredible. Now, in terms of getting back to the markets themselves, though, we had some strength in the financials. The financials have been just kind of that grinding, moving, and continually pulling back somewhat, but then generally moving in an upward trend. And we continue to see a lot of that. We had some strength with the industrials, but the weakness certainly was seen. You talk about the NASDAQ finishing in the red. Obviously, you looked at tech pulling it on a little bit. The SMH, the semiconductors pulling a little bit. Biotech, kind of the same story, all just sort of pulling, nothing big, but some definite weight being put on the NASDAQ, and that's why we finished where we did. Also, some of the biggies, you got Amazon, you had Apple, you had Moderna, all pulling it down just that little bit that we were back on Friday. Well, big different story coming out at us right now. I also want to mention, we talk about Target all the time for all the right reasons. All Target does is execute. They've been doing it for many years. They came out with earnings last week, and oh, by the way, on Friday, yep, another 52-week high, all-time high. And today, we're starting another all-time high. It's a daily thing. But Target, with that earnings, was absolutely impressive. And this time, they didn't say it was peak earnings. This time, the follow-through continued to hold on. And Target had a really wonderful week, and it's had an unbelievable year. And far outpacing some of the competition, even on a daily basis. You look back to Friday, Costco was in the red, Walmart was in the red, Target was in the green. And Target looked very, very strong. So volatility, really tight range. And we've been talking about the volatile markets, but the VIX itself in an extremely tight range. And when you look over at the Dow and the NASDAQ and the movement that we've had, it has constricted somewhat as well. It's been up and down, but certainly the size of those moves has definitely constricted a little bit. That's why we're seeing that volatility come down from those peaks that we'd seen recently up near that 30 level. And here we are once again back towards 20, closed around 20. We had some great volume on Friday. Once again, we talk about the volumes all the time. I hear people saying, oh, the volumes look a little light. I got to tell you, all you've got to do, it's all about comparison of about time frame. And when you talk about 39 million contracts, that's a big number. Anything close to 40 million is a big number. Anything north of 30 million is a big number. And that's what we've been seeing for the last 14, 16, 18 months. Unbelievable volumes coming into the market. So please understand the derivatives markets. It's really, really important because that is where we are seeing the action and the volume and everything else. So we come through the weekend. You take a look at the Dow, you take a look at the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ looks really strong, coming right out of the gate, nearly a triple-digit gains as we were in the pre-market and getting into the opening. And last I looked, we were approaching almost 200 points to the upside. Dow, same sort of story, except for obviously the Dow, when you look at what that price is, that's a little bit different percentage move, but still very, very strong move to the upside. Both the Dow and the NASDAQ up about 200 points, just under 200 points the last I looked. You had crude oil moving to the upside again. We talked about that move on Friday, a move again today, up near that 64.5, somewhere in that sort of range. So getting a little bit, all that much closer towards that 67 levels where we just were not too terribly long ago. Now, we talk about Bitcoin all the time, continue to talk about Bitcoin. Nice bounce today. But you look at where the numbers, and I'll tell you what, if you looked overnight, over the weekend, you probably had some concerns if you're any kind of a position long crypto and specifically Bitcoin. But we're seeing a pretty nice rally off of those lows, at least certainly today to start off. We're back with about a 19, call it low 19s for the volatility index. We were just above 20. We're right in that sort of 19 to 20 right now. So we've definitely pulled back. It's something that very much surprised me, but we have been seeing that move that was moving up, pulling back, moving up, pulling back. Now we've pulled all the way back, so it's going to be interesting. When we get in that 20 area, 20 to 25, we've always talked about this, it is an interesting spot for the volatility index, and a lot of people say it's a no-tell, it's a no-touch, it's very, very difficult, and it certainly has played out this time. Definite market movement that we have seen has definitely been very, very interesting, and the rotation continues, and I think that's part of the bullishness of what we are seeing today is just some of that rotation, some of that back and fill and all the rest of it, whatever term you want to use. I'll tell you, when you look today and you look at technology, it is the big names on the lead. Just look even at some of the Dow stocks. You look at Cisco, Microsoft, Apple, Salesforce, all moving to the upside. Then you look over at Facebook and Google, and you've got some great strength there. Materials, also some strength. So we're seeing different parts of the market, but the last I looked, every single sector started off the day in the green, and the last I looked, all were still continuing to hold on to being in the green. So that says something. A couple of really interesting stocks out there. I'll tell you, Virgin Galactic, SPCE, we've talked about this name many times. It was up as much as 20% or even more, probably a little bit off of some of those numbers. Pretty aggressive move to the upside. And why? Because of the success of this flight, the most recent flight, and people are getting more and more excited about that. So certainly that name sort of stood out for me, because anytime you see a stock making a 20+% move to the upside, at least in the free and all, that's something that definitely is going to gather your attention. Coinbase is another one. We talk about Bitcoin. We talk about a lot of these different cryptocurrencies and the trading aspect of it. Coinbase, this is a name that we talked about not too terribly long ago, and the move that we were seeing when we were seeing some upside call buying, Coinbase was trading about 196. Had a really nice run up and then having a little bit of some follow through today as we were seeing some stabilization, at least in the crypto world, certainly. I got two unusuals and then I got to get out of here. I will see you on the halftime report today. And anybody who wants to on the iHeartRadio and all the rest of that, WCCO, it's a Minnesota station that has a huge broadcast network, and it's going to be at 10 o'clock. I join Corey Hepla every Monday. It's a lot of fun. We got a lot of things we're going to cover there. So let's hit the unusual and get out of here. Uber. Now, Uber is pretty interesting because we were seeing stock trading right just around that 49.50 level, around 49.60. We had a buyer of not just a small amount, 11,500 of this week's expiring, the May 28th expiring calls. And these calls are the 49.5. So it's right where the stock is. So somebody wanting to buy right where the stock is to see if there's another push to the upside. By the way, a very smart trade because we are seeing some of that being hedged, selling some upside calls at the 53.5 strike. So that's something that stood out for me. And those were going for about 70 to 90 cents. So there's your Uber. And we've seen Uber time and time and time again. And we've seen a lot of activity. You probably heard me talk about it on the halftime report. But Uber has continually been hitting on a very, very consistent basis, it seems. Somebody looking for a very short-term run to the upside from here. Nvidia is another one. We got earnings this week, Wednesday, after the close. And yet we've got a huge buyer going right into some of that very, very volatile option paper because let me tell you something, implied volatility start to rise as you get towards a catalyst, and certainly earnings is a catalyst. So Nvidia was trading around 16 or 616. We had a buyer of May 28th, so they are definitely playing earnings here, folks, of the 650 calls. And these are not cheap, and we're talking about a pretty significant move to the upside. But a name like Nvidia is certainly one of those names that's capable of something like this potentially. 5,700 of those 650 calls that expired at the end of the week, they were $5 all the way up to $6.60. So that was pretty expensive. So I just caution you, A, this is going up against an event. Implied volatilities are high. That dollar amount is high. But I'm just letting you know what we are seeing in the unusual options activity. And those two, I thought, made the most sense. And one fairly inexpensive, right at the money, expiring this week. One fairly far out of the money with the earnings this week as the monster catalyst that could push this higher. Folks, have a great day of trading. Look forward to seeing you on the halftime report today as well at noon Eastern time.